My friend, every promise that you keep becomes another brick in the foundation of self-trust. Don't underestimate what those small wins are actually building. Welcome to the Bounce Back Black Woman podcast. I'm Dell, coach, author, mom, and your sister along this journey of healing, growth, resilience, and living more intentionally. As Black women, we know all too well that life can break our hearts in more ways than one. But here in this space, we heal, grow, rebuild, and bounce back together. Because it's not just you. It's not just me. It's us. Hey there, my friend, and welcome back to Bounce Back Black Woman. In our last episode, I know that we had a conversation that wasn't an easy one. Not for you, and honestly, not really for me. We talked about the quiet ways that we continue punishing ourselves after making poor choices. Maybe you recognized yourself in one of those 4 signs. Maybe you realized that you've been replaying old mistakes, questioning your worth, or allowing one difficult chapter to become the way that you see your entire life. If that's where you found yourself, I hope that you heard my heart in that message. Because that episode wasn't about making you feel guilty. It was about helping you recognize that carrying shame forever is not the same thing as growing. And today I want you to take the next step. Because once we begin laying down self-punishment, there's another question that naturally rises to the top. And that is, how do I trust myself again? How do I trust myself after I ignored my intuition? How do I trust myself after I stayed longer than I should have? How do I trust myself after making choices that hurt me or cost me or hurt or cost people that I love? My friend, those can be painful questions because losing trust in someone else is difficult. But losing trust in yourself, that can affect every relationship, every opportunity, and every decision that you make from there forward. You start second guessing everything. You start overthinking even simple decisions. You start asking everyone else for advice because you no longer believe that your own judgment is enough. And before you know it, you've become afraid of yourself. That is heavy and deep and hard. But can I encourage you with something today, right now? The fact that you've made poor choices doesn't mean that you're incapable of making wise ones. It means that you've gained experience, practice, you've gained perspective, and you've learned lessons that you didn't know before. And while those lessons may have come at a painful or costly price, they're still lessons. My friend, self-trust isn't something that you're simply born with. It is something that you build and develop over time and experience. Just like trust with another person, it grows through consistency. It grows through honesty. It grows each and every time that you prove to yourself that you are becoming someone different than you were yesterday. And so today, I want to talk about 5 practical ways to begin rebuilding self-trust after making poor choices. Let's jump right in with the first one. Number 1, stop expecting perfection and start expecting progress. I think one of the biggest reasons that we struggle to trust ourselves again is because we quietly believe that we finally feel confident once we stop making mistakes. Can I tell you something with love? That day isn't coming. Not because you're failing, but because you're human. You are going to misunderstand people sometimes. You are going to make decisions that don't turn out the way that you had hoped. And some of those decisions might hurt yourself or others. You're going to have moments where, with the benefit of hindsight, you wish you had chosen differently. Welcome to being human, my friend. The women that I know who trust themselves the most aren't the women who've never made mistakes. They're the women who've learned that they can survive those mistakes. They've learned that they can recover. They've learned that they can apologize. They've learned that they can begin again. They've learned that they can adjust. And that is what confidence really looks like. Friends, stop asking yourself, will I ever stop making mistakes? That is not a realistic question. Because as long as you're living, you will still make mistakes. Instead, start asking yourself, am I becoming wiser because of the mistakes that I make? And those are two very different questions. You see, growth builds confidence, but perfection or expecting perfection only builds pressure. The second way to keep rebuilding your self-trust is to keep one small promise to yourself every single day. Can I let you in on a little secret? Self-trust isn't usually rebuilt through one giant breakthrough. It's rebuilt through ordinary Tuesday afternoons. It's rebuilt when you say you're going to take a walk, and then you take a walk. It's rebuilt when you say you're going to drink more water, and even if for one day you drink more water. When you promise yourself you'll spend 10 minutes praying before you pick up your phone in the morning, and then you actually do it. When you finally schedule the doctor's appointment you've been putting off, or finally finish the task that you've been avoiding. When you go to bed instead of scrolling for another hour. I know those little promises might seem insignificant, but they're not. Every single time you follow through with yourself, you're sending yourself a message that says, I am becoming someone that I can count on. Think about it this way. If you had a friend who consistently did what she said she was going to do, you would trust her. And you wouldn't trust her because you thought she was perfect. You would trust her because she was consistent. She kept her word. And why should your relationship with yourself be any different? My friend, every promise that you keep becomes another brick in the foundation of self-trust. Don't underestimate what those small wins are actually building. Number 3, let your values and not your emotions guide your decisions. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you've probably heard me talk about values at one time or another. And there's a reason that I come back to them over and over again. Because emotions are real, but they're not always reliable. Some mornings you'll wake up feeling hopeful. Other mornings you'll wake up feeling discouraged. Some days you'll feel brave, and other days you'll feel afraid. And if your decisions rise and fall with your emotions, your life will feel like a roller coaster. But values become your compass. They remind you of who you want to be, who you've said you will be, even when your emotions are all over the place. One of the things that I love watching with my coaching clients is what happens after they identify what their core values are. Because everyone doesn't have or share the same core values. So understanding what yours are is critically important. And once they do that, they stop making decisions based only on fear. And we work on asking questions like, what choice aligns with the woman that I've decided I want to be? What decision reflects integrity? What decision reflects courage? or whatever your values that you've identified are, finding the decision that aligns with that. My friend, this is where self-trust begins to grow, because you're no longer reacting to every emotion. And God knows He gave us a ton of emotions, especially as women. You are intentionally choosing a direction when you do this. And the more your decisions line up with your values, the more that you will begin believing in your own judgment again. And that is a beautiful place to be. Number 4, you start collecting evidence that you're becoming somebody new, that you love, and that you can trust. And this might be my favorite point of the entire episode today, because I think this is where so many of us get stuck. We're incredibly good at collecting evidence against ourselves. I've heard all of them, and I've said some of them. I knew I'd mess this up. There I go again. I always do this. When will I ever learn? My friend, can I challenge you to start collecting different evidence? Instead of keeping a mental list of every mistake you've ever made, start noticing the moments that prove that you are growing. Maybe this time you recognize the red flag sooner. Maybe this time you spoke up instead of staying silent. Maybe this time you set a healthy boundary instead of saying yes when you really meant no. Maybe this time you paused before reacting. Maybe this time you apologized without making excuses for your own behavior. Maybe this time you asked for help instead of pretending you could do it all on your own. Maybe this time you stopped and prayed and asked God before making the decision. My friend, those moments matter. They're evidence that you are healing, evidence that you are growing, and evidence that you are becoming wiser. Sometimes we get so focused on how far we still have to go that we completely overlook how far we've already come. And I want you to stop doing that. Celebrate the progress, not because you're perfect or you've arrived at the magical destination, but because you're moving and growing, and movement matters. Number 5, trust God with the outcome, but trust yourself with the next step. I think this is where we get hung up, or at least many of us get hung up. We want certainty. We want guarantees. We want to know, hands down, that if we make this decision, everything is going to work out exactly the way we hope. But can I let you in on a little secret? Life doesn't come with guarantees. And honestly, neither does faith. Faith has never meant having all the answers. Faith has always meant just taking the next faithful step. My friend, God never asked you to figure out your entire future in one sitting. He asks you to trust Him with your future and faithfully steward today. Sometimes I think we put so much pressure on ourselves because we're trying to make today's decision answer all of tomorrow's questions. And it can't. Today's decision only has one job: to be the wisest and best and most informed decision that you can make with what you know now. That's it. And if 6 months from now you learn something new, then you make another wise decision. That's not failure. That is growth. One of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself is believing that you may not always know exactly what to do, but you trust yourself to pause, to pray, to seek wisdom, and to respond with integrity and alignment with your values. My friend, that is real self-trust. Not believing that you'll never make another mistake, but believing that you'll know how to respond when life gives you another opportunity to choose. One of my favorite reminders of this comes from Philippians 1:6, which reads out of my favorite translation, the New Living Translation, "And I am certain that God, who began the good work within you, will continue his work until it is finally finished on the day when Christ Jesus returns." And the reason I love this verse so much is because it reminds me that none of us are finished. I'm not finished. You're not finished. None of us are finished. We're all still growing, still learning, still becoming, still evolving. My friend, if you take nothing else from this episode today, take this. Please don't judge the woman that you're becoming by the woman that you used to be, because God certainly doesn't. He sees the work that he's doing in you, and maybe it's time that you start seeing it too. This week, I want you to make one promise to yourself each morning. Nothing huge, nothing overwhelming, just one simple promise. And then keep it. And at the end of the day, check in with yourself and ask, what evidence did I see today that I'm becoming someone that I can trust? And then go to your journal and write it down. And do that every day for the next week. And I guarantee you that by the end of the 7 days, you'll have 7 reminders that growth within you is already happening. So that's the challenge. But here's the prompt, the deeper prompt. What evidence already exists that I am becoming someone that I can trust? And what's one small promise that I can keep to myself this week? My friend, before we go, I want to remind you of something. One poor decision does not erase your wisdom. One unhealthy relationship does not erase your discernment. For that matter, 2, 3, or 4 poor decisions or unhealthy relationships do not erase your discernment. One season of fear does not erase your courage. One chapter never tells the whole story. The woman making decisions today isn't the same woman that she was 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 30 years ago. She has more experience, more wisdom, more resilience, more faith, more perspective. So give her some credit. Give her the opportunity to show you who she's becoming. Because self-trust isn't rebuilt all at once. It is rebuilt one promise, one decision, one courageous step at a time. And friend, I believe in the woman that you're becoming. My prayer is that before long you will too. So until next time, keep healing, keep growing, keep rebuilding, and keep bouncing back. Well, that's it for today, my friend. I really hope this episode inspired, encouraged, or just plain comforted you. If so, please share it with a friend who might be struggling in her own healing journey. And if you take a moment to leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts, you'll help other women find encouragement through their heartbreak. Remember that God is holding your hand along this journey, and guess what? I'm holding the other. Life is short, so bounce back, Black woman.